Hey, everybody. Welcome back. The Business Roundtable podcast. We have got Charlie and Bill back with us here. I'm David Carr, one of your hosts of Steward Your Business, helping you and your teams lead well, helping you in overall organizational health. We've got a great topic going to be led by Charlie tonight, but I'll let Bill introduce himself, and then we'll throw it over to Charlie. Bill?
Hey, well, not to get too much into it, but my name is Bill Hatch. I am a leadership guide and podcaster. I podcast under the publishing header of Bald Spots Productions. So,
Glad to have you back, Bill.
yep.
Hey, Charlie. Welcome
Glad to be
back.
back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got the trio here. All right.
Yep, absolutely. So, David, thanks for the brief introduction. So, it's Charlie Chen, the cybersecurity specialist of the group here, and I work as the Chief Experience Officer, where our focus, obviously, aside from delivering peace of mind to small to mid-sized companies, is to deliver a world-class client experience that you don't typically associate with IT support people. So, anyhow, let's jump right in. So
Yeah.
I want to dovetail off of the last segment, which is about communication,
Mhm.
and what better way to start than with the customer or client lifecycle management, because there's different touch points along their journey with our businesses, and so. There's 5 areas predominantly within a customer's life cycle with our businesses. It's reach, acquisition, can't really see my hand,
There you go.
conversion, retention, and finally loyalty. And so I wanted to just actually pick both of your brains. We'll start with you, David.
Mhm.
In terms of your outreach to potential customers or clients, what's what's your communication best practices around that?
That's a great question, because I know we were talking about this right before we came on here
Yep.
about the ones we don't like, and we kind of talked a little bit about that in the business development episode 2. So if you guys missed that one, go back and check that out. That was a great conversation with you and Luke, and so I think one thing that's really important, Charlie, is you actually gave us a good example of it. Who are you about? Who do you serve? What's your message? Right.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important to have a clear message and know who do you want to serve. I think a lot of businesses are too broad in their
Hmm.
messaging, and they just kind of try to get anybody they can.
Yeah.
And that's, I find, not a good solution. So it's number one, it's really knowing who you are and what your message is, and then who do
Hmm.
you really want to serve, and then you can
Right.
really tailor the message. I definitely want to get into more specifics with you, Charlie, but
Yeah.
I find that, like Bill and I were just talking earlier, we'll get messages unsolicited, and they're like, they don't even know us. I
Right. Right.
mean, LinkedIn is the worst for that, and one of them. I mean, email too, right, Bill? We were,
Absolutely.
just saying, like, Bill, just
Yeah.
share your example real quick, because I just think it's funny, because I was like, I want to reconnect with Bill on LinkedIn, and tell me, Bill, why you're like, oh, I'm hesitant to get on there about communication.
Yeah, I get on there so little anymore because it seems like everybody is, hey, how you doing? Buy my thing. It's like you need a relationship. I mean, it's called client relationship management for a reason. It's a relationship, and
Mhm.
people get too far into it too fast. And it's like it's one thing if I approached you and said, "Hey, I'm interested in your widget," then it's like, okay, that's the sales question, right
Mhm.
there, and all. But if I'm just hanging out, that's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, it's ridiculous, and yeah, people just need to stop it.
Please, in the words of Bob Newhart, if anybody knows that episode, just stop it.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So what I hear you saying, Bill, is build relationship first.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. If it's, yeah, you can't sell a cold client. That's just
Okay, so what
there's too
about
many
cold
steps
calling?
left.
speaking of outreach and reaching out to potential customers or clients, what's your take on cold calling?
Well, you have to treat it like the beginning of a relationship.
Absolutely.
If you treat a cold call like, well, like I used to sell cars, and a lot of cold calling,
Hmm.
but not absolutely cold, because usually these people had signed up somewhere saying, hey, I'm interested in getting more information on a car. So it's
Yeah.
not absolute zero cold, but
Yeah.
it's still pretty cold.
Yeah.
But you had to treat it like the beginning of the relationship. You weren't going to call them up and say, hey, I have a car, buy it.
Right.
It's, hey, I understand you're interested in cars.
Right. Right.
Tell me more,
Yeah.
and let me know what your thoughts are on it, and where you're at, so I can start the relationship.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. What about
I
you, David? Have you
Yeah,
run into that, like dealing with
I'm
the
not.
cold
I'm
lead?
not. Me personally, I'm not. That's not an area that I focused in on.
Yeah.
And there's actually a great resource in case you guys probably never have seen this one, but this is a really good book if you want to get into leads and what types of leads there are. For me at this
Yeah.
stage in the business, um, I've honestly always mostly focused on warm leads, or
Hmm.
if it's cold, meaning not cold, but meaning somebody said that, hey, I at least want more information. Maybe they don't know me, like you're saying,
Hmm.
Bill, but they've said they've signed a form or they filled up something that says, I'm willing to get information, right? It's
Hmm.
not coming unsolicited. It's somehow, somewhere they said that they wanted information. And that's part of the, I have kind of a similar framework that I work from, Charlie, as far as like, I call it strategic seduction about how we, in a good way, how do we have that relationship, like you said, Bill? And the first part for me is communicate message. The second part is really capturing permission. Um, and I find that much more successful.
Hmm.
Is like you were saying, Bill, by capturing permission is somebody who says, yeah, okay, I'm willing, I'm interested, you've got my attention, right, Charlie? And
Mhm.
but that takes time sometimes. People have to hear your message for a while before they feel
Right.
like, okay, I'm let's go to the next step.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually that transitions to the acquisition stage, which is when a prospective customer becomes a lead.
Mhm.
But before we dive into that, to where we can help them see how our solution solves their problems and challenges, uh, just from a, I guess, uh, recommendation standpoint for some of the small to mid-sized companies that may not have a huge marketing budget in terms of their reach to generate that interest in their business, what are some cost-effective ways of generating that interest or that attraction marketing?
I mean, I'll just jump in there first, and then I'll let Bill jump in. I mean, one of the mentors of um, Giant that I have, Steve Cochran, who actually wrote the book, The Communication Code we talked about last week. I was talking with him last year, and I said, as in that kind of stage, Charlie, looking at that part of that, I said, and he was recommending find your people of peace, meaning these may not be your buyers, but they know you, Charlie, or they know you, Bill, and they know you're reputable, they know you're good, and then let them be introduce or referrals to clients. I mean, I did that with you, Charlie. We all
Hmm.
met in M&O.
Yeah.
We talk about paying it forward. That's relatively no cost. You're not paying anybody; it's just their time,
Right.
and that to me is very valuable.
Hmm.
And that's what we do here. We're building relationships, and we provide this as a resource too. If people contact us here, we can like get to know them and say, how can I introduce you or connect? um I find that very, very powerful. And honestly, if we forget sometimes, if we even ask our existing customers, Charlie, like,
Hmm.
who's somebody that I might be able to help that, and
Hmm.
we don't ask the question, they're not thinking about it. Like, I'm
Right.
not going to throw people because you're not asking me. And that's all it takes
Absolutely.
sometimes.
Right.
It's a simple question. Who do you
Yeah.
know else that I could help, that might be able to
Yeah.
help?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
What about
Yeah.
what about you, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of networking. It's networking is to time as marketing is to money. So if you don't have the money to pay for the marketing, then you better have the time to work on the networking. Getting referrals is a great way to get clients because they're not absolutely cold. Someone's built up a trust relationship with that potential client, and they're referring them to you. Saying, "Hey, you trust me. Well, I trust this guy. So why don't you go ahead and talk to them about this need?" And it's a great way to make up for that marketing budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, awesome. So now that we have a interested party, they become a lead. So during this acquisition phase is where you have the communication with a potential customer. What are some, I guess, best practices or frameworks maybe, or just talking points, or maybe just in terms of certain key concepts or I guess steps that you may put a potential lead through to identify and uncover to see if they're a good fit and if you're a good fit for each other. So we'll start with you, Bill.
Well, it's all about the questions. The person who is asking the questions has the control of the situation.
Hmm.
And if you're in the sales seat, in the seller seat, you want to be in control, but you have to be careful not to make it feel like you're controlling them. So you ask a lot of questions about what their needs are and how they feel about different things and what they see as their future. Where are you going? Where do you plan to be in a year, in 6 months, in 5 years, whatever the time frame is? And just learning to ask those good questions to get the person lined up and make sure that, because you want to make sure that your solution is right for them. You don't want to sell the wrong person, because that's not going to be good.
Hmm.
It'll end up backfiring on you, and you can't sell everybody because not everybody needs what you have. And if you do
Right.
sell the wrong person, they'll tell more people that they're unhappy than your happiest customer will tell people that they're happy. Um,
Gotcha.
so yeah,
Yeah.
bad
Yeah.
news travels a lot faster and a lot farther than
Gotcha.
good news.
Yeah,
So you want to be careful with that.
absolutely. I love that. Yeah, definitely ask questions. That also demonstrates your willingness to learn about them and care for their priorities as opposed to telling them about how great we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, David, what about you? What are some of your
Yeah, I mean,
um
I love that,
points?
Bill. Be curious and ask questions. Ask lots of questions, and we've talked about that in previous episodes. I think that's really important. I think this idea, this broader idea, what you brought up, this client journey, Charlie, too. I think is important. Um, it's almost like literally map out what that looks like. I've done that with another business coach. We kind of figure out where they're coming in the process, because it can be, depending on how complicated your system is, it's not a linear thing. Depending on where this person is in the process, and are they closer to the place where they're going to make a decision or not? And I found, at least in my experience, most people can take, I get somebody that sees your offer, sees you, and they want to buy within, a few weeks. But honestly, it's typically months and even longer cycle, or a year, before they've seen enough of your content. So I think it's important, in this stage of, if they've captured commit permission, like we talked about, Charlie. The next phase I have is called convert mindset. It's getting them into a place where they feel like you're a solution. So
Mhm.
I'm teaching, I'm training, I'm telling stories, I'm asking questions. Um, for me personally, as a coach and consultant, it's important that as to do that, I have to show people in my life, essentially, and live what I'm teaching and sharing, right? Because why would
Yeah,
anyone want to buy from me if they're not knowing me from anybody else?
right.
And that takes time and effort to
Mhm.
do that. And then
Yeah.
I have to talk about, as part of this process of the converting mindset, is getting clear and asking questions. So I would say, if you're not sure as a business owner and you're not clear on your ideal client, I would say go meet with some people and start asking some questions. Like, what are some of the things you're facing?
Mhm.
Right? And start to really understand them. This is
Mhm.
also helpful for me in creating. There's all different kinds of content. We can probably go into this in nuance, Charlie, but I'll just give you an example, because we're on a podcast, and I have a separate podcast, the Intelligent Human Leader podcast. When I created that podcast specifically, I had to go through, who is this person I'm targeting? How is it going to resonate with that individual? We created this
Mhm.
podcast as a way of helping business owners and those that are being aspiring entrepreneurs. Is like, okay, let's make sure we're getting topics and things that are relevant to them and are going to
Yeah.
help them, right?
Yep.
So it's putting ourselves in the mindset of where are they at in their shoes, and
Mhm.
help them be the hero and make the decision, and like, oh, if I do this, I'm actually going to be in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought up the word conversion, because that is the third stage. That's
Mhm.
where a prospect becomes a purchasing customer. So
Mm.
does that mean that our work is done, and that we're at the destination there?
Well, no, I mean, well, I think the conversion, or maybe right before the conversion, Charlie, you've got the
Mhm.
mindset, right? And you have to
Yeah.
have that final decision where they're going to be a yes or a no. And I think maybe just before we get to completely
Yeah.
like their customer, I'd like to maybe just ask a question, because this came up with another conversation this week, where I actually had I was talking to somebody. We were talking about proposals and
Mhm.
lost proposals, and we're talking about why.
Mm.
Like, you actually got the opportunity to pitch them. They said
Mhm.
yes. They said, give me your offer. And so here's your opportunity to convert, like you said, Charlie. But
Mhm.
I would just and I'll ask you, Charlie, because I know you do this all the time. I want to,
Mhm.
like, what happened? Like, when you like, I thought I understood their needs, I presented it, and they said no. Like, what went wrong there? What have you learned from that in the communication of a client, a potential client, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all comes back to motivation. Like, how motivated are they to make a change?
Mm-hmm.
There's a story where this person passes by a howling dog, right? And it's just sitting there howling, and the dog owner is just sitting next to the dog, and so this guy asks the owner, like, why is the dog just sitting there howling? So the owner's like, yeah, he's sitting on a I guess a nail, kind of like an old nail. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, then why doesn't the dog move? The owner's like, well, it's hurting just enough to where it's complaining about it, but not hurting enough to where it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
do something about it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, depending on the situation and the timing, a potential customer is not hurting enough that they're not motivated enough to make a change,
Mm-hmm.
because the the pain of change of switching to your solution is perceived as a greater pain than whatever challenge that they're dealing with now. And so our job is maybe to first make sure that to help them identify their current challenges, and actually future for them, like what's it's almost like your default future, right? What's the cost of doing nothing? And
Mm-hmm.
really having that conversation, that visualization, so that they can see, okay, like in our case, you know, what is it going to cost you if your business is down for a day or a
Mm-hmm.
week?
Right.
How much is that costing you a day, right? So that will really put things into perspective for them.
I love that. No, I think you're 100% right, Charlie, and I
Yeah,
don't want to get Bill's percent. I just, because the problem or the pain, because if you're not hitting that, like you said, hard enough,
yeah.
they don't see it, they're not going to move. Or I made this, yeah, and in doing that, I don't know about you, Charlie, and Bill, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because I've done this. I'm guilty of this. I used to have a DJ business. I love to DJ music, and I always talk about all the cool gear and the lights and the music and all these cool
Mhm.
things. But I wasn't talking about just what you said about, Charlie. What happens if your wedding goes off the rails? What
Right.
happens if yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't focus in on that. And so I would put a proposal together and I would lose. I wouldn't get it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because I wasn't resonating enough. But Bill, I'd love your thoughts on this kind of topic.
Yeah. Finding the well, people run from pain, or they run toward pleasure, but they more often tend to run from pain. And you have to use a little bit of both to help people run toward your solution. If find out what their pains are, make sure you quantify them, and and tell how you can solve those pain problems, and then what's good about you, because you want to make sure people feel good about your solution, and yeah, just help them to get off that nail, to want to get off the nail, and
exactly.
And
you might have to sharpen that nail for them, right?
No, I think you're Charlie. I think sometimes it is. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, at least the reality of it, but I think
and a lot of it we've talked about it. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say.
Okay. I was gonna say we've. David first.
Go.
The lag makes this impossible.
Okay, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, the lag makes it impossible. I was just gonna say that we've talked about it before, but it bears repeating here that we must be good, active listeners. We have to hear. We can't just hear the words and let them bounce off us and go toward our kill shot. We have to listen to and hear what the client is saying, as far as what are their pain points, what would make things better for them, and and work from that.
I love that you said that, Bill. That's actually a neat trick that I learned this past couple of years, is really being fully present and repeating back exactly what was said. So literally I say, what I heard you saying is, Bill, to use active listening and actually hear what they're telling you. And anyway, I didn't do a good job there, but I tell them exactly what was said, and then I ask them, did I hear you correctly? And so it's almost counterintuitive to do that, because at first when I started doing it, I felt like a parrot. But for people to really feel heard, like seen, heard, and understood, that works really well for that. So,
yeah.
Well,
no, I think it's good.
You don't need to. You don't want to stop there with the parroting, though. I mean, that's step one. That's important, but you also need to make sure you understand what they mean by that. And so rewording what they've said after you've repeated it. I heard you say that this is important to you. Did you mean this by that?
Yep.
And that to help the client not only feel that you've heard them, but that you've understood them.
Yep.
As well.
That's that clarity piece we talked about last week. And I think it's important that we lead them when you have that when you're in that conversation, Charlie. If they've actually said, okay, I'm interested. Now some of us give them proposals. Some businesses, depending on what it is, can literally process the sale right then and there, but get them, like you were saying, Bill, in a good way, like say, hey, the goal here would be to make a decision, yes or no. We don't. The maybe is a bad place to be with a customer.
Right.
If you're that's kind of like, it's like you're staying in the friend zone. It's like, are we going to get married and do this, or are we, what's going on here, right? And so, to your point, Bill, get clarity. Like, what's your real intention here? Because if it doesn't help both parties, right? If you're both being kind of led on here, what's going on? So if they've gone through what you're talking about, Charlie, this whole process, you want to get to that place where they can actually make a decision one way or the other.
Right.
Be good with it and be calm with it. We don't want people to make a decision, forced, right? Like sometimes people make forced, like that buyer's regret, and that's worse. That's just
And
right.
speaking of that, like the actual acquisition portion of it, in terms of the communication around that, do you just send the proposal over email? Do you just how do you typically handle that communication, like sharing them,
That's a
going
great
over the
question.
numbers? Yeah.
I mean, ideally, and this depends on who your client is, right? If it's an
Right.
individual, it's a lot easier. In my opinion, the proposal should, if you have to send a proposal, that should be a formality, just solidifying and getting the contracting in place. They
Mm-hmm.
already understand there shouldn't be a lot of surprises, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we've talked about this, we understand the cost. These are just some things we just got to make sure we got, there may be some negotiations on some basic contracting language, but it shouldn't be anything like surprising or we should negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, too, if you can, this is something I've learned. If you have, um, you know, a payment portal or whatever that is, if you can right then and there where they've made the decision, they're feeling the pain, right? Like we talked about
Mm-hmm.
earlier, Charlie,
Mm-hmm.
move on that as quickly as possible. If they're saying yes, because
Right.
what happens is what happens to all of us if we don't make a decision and we feel like we do need to make the decision and then we let a day go by, 2 days, 3 days, the pain has now subsided and we're thinking we're on to other things,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
the likelihood that the longer that we go between, you know, yeah, what's the word I want to say, consummating the relationship, the longer we
Right.
go with that, the less likelihood we're going to actually proceed with
Yeah.
with the sale, right? I mean, that's my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about you, Bill? What
Yeah,
communication
absolutely.
keys? Yeah.
Absolutely. The paperwork should be just a formality. Making sure that everybody knows this is where you need to be, and this is what you need to do, and this is where I'm going to be, and this is what I'm going to do,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how much you're going to pay me. Here's the payment platform. Yeah, get
Mm-hmm.
that commitment right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And as soon as you have the commitment, get the commitment.
Yeah. Make it easy to do business with you, right?
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
You know,
And
I
another
want to
thing
give
I've
you money. Let
yeah,
me do that.
Yeah, let me pay
yeah,
you,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's why Amazon is so successful, right? It's
Hmm.
the big red easy button.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, right, make it easy.
absolutely.
Some
Yeah.
people make it too difficult here's the thing, actually, Charlie, I think this is important for business owners, and I've learned this myself in proposals. A lot of times people actually are already ready to say yes, like you're saying, Bill, and you keep talking. You keep going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
They're like already
Quit
convinced. You could talk them out
quit
of it.
digging.
Yeah,
Quit
Right.
digging. You struck oil.
right. You gotta pay
Yeah.
attention to that.
Yeah.
They're already like, you hit the pain, I'm sold. You could
Right.
actually keep talking and talking out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not, again, this goes to active listening earlier,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right?
It's learning how to take the sales hat off and put the facilitator hat on, right?
Yeah, I
Project
mean,
manager hat on.
you got, this is a challenge for all of us. I mean, we're going in between all these things:
Yeah.
consultant, trainer, teacher, seller. I
Yeah.
mean, all of these elements.
Right.
The more we can be fluid between them, the better. But it's difficult,
Yeah.
you know.
So
Uh,
yeah, another thing I've heard is email is where proposals go to die. It's like the proposal graveyard, right?
yeah, yeah. I'll
So
send you the
I
email. And, yeah.
yeah, I've heard to as much as possible have a meeting to go over it, and that way there's no room for misunderstanding. You can also read any of their reaction and responses and
Mhm.
address any concerns or questions that come up as you're going over the solution proposal and the numbers and
Mhm.
all that. And uh,
Yeah.
lastly, I would just say, for any communication during the acquisition process is, would you guys agree with this? Is always having a next step, as opposed to be
Sure.
like leaving ending of a meeting without the next step already in place
Hmm.
Yeah.
and set up. Yeah.
Before you get that, one other thing that came to
sure.
my mind, Charlie, I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring up because I think this is important, especially for very small businesses,
Hmm.
or you're just starting out. If you're a solopreneur, or maybe you've got a few people, is don't overcomplicate it. Meaning, make too many offers. I made that mistake.
Hmm.
You have a core offer that you have, and of course you can tailor that offer. But if you guys, if you guys go to the grocery store and you said get a box of cereal, and you're like, there's 40 versions of cereal, which one do I pick? If you make it too complicated for them, Charlie, like here's the menu, and here, like,
Analysis paralysis.
it's like, what?
Yeah.
Can you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it just gets harder for you to communicate and track too. Which offer am I talking about today? Which one am I going on?
Right.
So being clear on your offer, I think, is really, really important. And like you said, in your offer, what you just said, Charlie, then is a lead in. So when we sign up, this is the offer. This would be, you start within what, a week? What's the starting date? What's the schedule? Like, okay, we get started
Hmm.
today, tomorrow? What's the onboarding
Right.
process of
Right.
your client?
Yeah, and you want to definitely come from a consultative sale standpoint as opposed to a commodity sale, right? So
Mhm.
can you imagine if you go to your doctor and then they give you like 3 different prescriptions? Here's your options, right? If we're the consultant, shouldn't we know what the treatment is, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Um,
For sure. But yeah,
mhm.
you don't want to do too many. I mean, there's a reason why I've only ever gone to the Cheesecake Factory to get cheesecake. And that's because they've got a 50-page menu. There's too many choices to go for. There's too many choices. You get confused by, and it's like, oh, that sounds good and that sounds good, but you can't do both of those. And it's just, yeah, it's too much. You need to
right,
limit what your offers are.
yeah,
um it's just like limiting who you're approaching in the first place. You can't sell
yeah,
everybody,
yeah,
Mhm.
and you can't sell everything.
yeah,
So leave a few things off the menu and work on those for later.
yeah,
It's like
Yes.
after they get settled, with their core product and a couple of options, you come in and say, "Hey, I remember is you talking about this such and such. Is this
hmm,
still giving you an issue?" Well,
right,
yes, it is. Well,
yeah,
we have a solution for that we could easily add on to what you're doing already.
That's a great point, Bill. I think that goes to the customer life cycle
Mm-hmm.
situation. Sometimes people try to, that first offer you have, try to hit that out of the park, meaning like try to get
Yeah.
everything. And like, what's your customer life cycle? Like, what are they with you? Because what you're saying, Bill, is a great example. You have an
Mm-hmm.
initial offer, and if they really like you, you should have a second and probably third offer part of their life cycle. What's the total? I mean, what do we call this? The
lifetime value.
lifetime value. Yeah. What is
Yeah,
that? What is that person when they come work with you? What does that look like? If you're trying to get it all in the first offer and like squeeze it out of them, it's not a good practice. You've
yeah,
got to think about like, hey, let me bring that value and get you
Yeah.
go in the system, and then that gives me the right to present something next to you, and you can decide, hey, if that's like you said, Bill. I think that's a great point, Bill. What you just said, like this
yeah,
opportunity as you look and evaluate this offer,
yeah,
and it goes to our earlier conversation, um, about the beginning communicating our message.
hmm,
Again, I got stuck on this too, so I'm just kind of sharing other people hear this. If you make even if you have a niche kind of thing, but you try to make that offer or too broad, it's not going to resonate with anybody, and they're
hmm,
not going to want to come to work with you. I mean, me specifically, just I think you guys know, but just so I'll take a minute, but you just talked about for Charlie, kind of your ideal client, but for me, it was like talking to men, particularly that are in business that want to scale up, and they're like, how do I know myself to lead myself and my
hmm,
teams?
yeah,
Okay, well, if I start talking about marriage, that's tied to it, but that's not my lead in. My thing is, here's how you can show up in business. Now, if as we go through our program, we're going to talk about that because if you're really on fire in your marriage, you're going to see that in your business. But that's not what they're looking for. As far as I know, that's what they need, but that's not
hmm,
what they want. Right? There's a difference. The thing, what do they want? What are they looking for? And are you addressing what they want and getting really clear on that. Because
Right.
you, Charlie, I'm sure you know what clients need. They're not asking you for that initially, right?
Hmm. Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You
They
know what
don't. Yeah. They don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
That's why they're needing your help. And
Right.
so, yeah,
But there's like, I need
absolutely.
cybersecurity that you're like, I get it.
Right.
I know that's what you want.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there
Yeah.
with our program. Or Bill,
Right.
with your leaderships, guys, they're dealing with maybe an ethical dilemma, or you're helping them navigate that, right? You're understanding where they're at.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
like you said, Charlie, they don't know what they don't know,
Yeah.
and you have to guide them through what they want, and eventually evaluate what it is they need, and get them to understand that they need that,
Hmm.
to find that pain point.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when I first got into sales, I had this problem that I was pretty good at reading people. And so I'd figure out what they needed before they could articulate it. And I'd lose sale after sale. And I had to learn to slow down and to ask questions I already knew the answers to. To find out what it was, to help them figure out what it was that they really needed and join that with what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Love that. Okay, so moving on to conversion. So once they become a purchasing customer, is our job done? Is that it? Is that the
Oh yeah, I'm done.
destination?
I just said it
Yeah.
for you, Charlie.
I got your money. I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So David, what are some key steps there during when they convert?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit. The onboarding, just like an employee onboarding, is super important.
Hmm.
Making sure they feel that they're plugged in, and I would say have some kind of success pretty quickly in the process to keep their momentum going.
Hmm.
Um, that to me is really key. However that is for you and your business. I mean, you may use email. Maybe adding them into some kind of environment. It may just be a one-on-one meeting. It could be, I use like Loom to record a little video. It could be a customized little thing. Hey, welcome. Here's a little orientation. It's guiding them through the process. And this is going to change over the life cycle. So, as I'm a solopreneur and I have some people that help me, some VAs and things, but it may change. And this is important that you have a good handoff process, because this is where it can get dropped, especially if you're a bigger company. You have sales,
Hmm.
like sales, I'm done. They're moving on to the next sale, right?
Hmm.
They're-
Hmm.
It gets put in the hopper. And if somebody is not paying attention,
Yeah.
that could be really bad. It's like a relay race, right?
Right.
Has
Right.
the relay been handed off appropriately, or is it getting fumbled?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That handoff is so key.
Mhm.
What about you, Bill? Like transitioning.
Well,
Maybe you're both this front end, right? The
mhm.
business development or the sales, and you're the fulfillment as well. So how do you handle that transition, right? In terms of your
Well,
communication, in terms of setting expectations, all that good stuff.
well, for me, there's an old saying I like to keep in the back of my mind, and that's that the fortune is in the follow up.
Yep.
Mm. Mhm.
You've gotten them on board. Now is the time when you continue to follow up with them to make sure that they're satisfied, to keep that
Yep.
momentum going.
Oh, got lag.
Like David said,
Hmm.
like refer them to your networking partners, or upsell them on further products, or get them to refer their acquaintances, their fellow business people,
Oh,
you to work with them to get these things going.
Yeah.
yeah. I
Absolutely.
was going to add
Oh.
to that. Oh,
Mhm.
wait, if I could add, Charlie, I think
Yeah.
one great tool I've used as part of that process. Well, there's onboarding, and then once you kind of have them in there, Charlie, I think it's
Hmm.
good to get some kind of feedback or something from them, a little form or something, so that they can give you like what's working and not working. and encourage them so that that way you have the opportunity to address any issues. And because if they, they end up saying, "Oh, I don't want to work with you anymore," we want to get ahead of it early on if there's any
Yeah.
issues. 'Cause if
Right.
they don't want, if
Right.
they're like, "I don't want to be a buyer, I want to leave your program," or whatever, the more we
Right.
can get ahead of that, the better.
Right. Right. Yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road, where you're delivering on the service or the solution that was presented that will solve their problems.
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, this is where we really want to hit it out of the ballpark and have them experience more than maybe they anticipate. So
Mhm.
they're pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, not setting yourself up for failure to where you're overpromising and setting them up for disappointment either, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So that's awesome. So that leads into the retention stage, and so that's kind of what you were talking about, David,
Mhm.
is having them turning that initial purchase into a relationship. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about some key communication pieces around that stage.
Yeah, something that I do with my clients even now is that I meet with the business owners usually weekly or biweekly, and we're evaluating on a regular basis,
Yeah,
how are things working? So I think it takes somebody. This isn't for everybody, so you have to figure the right person too in your organization if you're not that person, but to have candid conversations to elicit feedback from them.
yeah,
Um, that's important depending on the client. I've done this in a previous business where we were in a consulting firm where we would have a third party come in and they would actually talk with our clients and kind of so they would do kind of an interview for us, for the company, and get feedback that way too. That's another good way to sometimes they won't tell you, unfortunately, but they will tell a third party, or if you have some kind of survey or something like that that you can get feedback from. I think that's super important, Charlie, to kind of continue to evaluate how you're performing,
yeah,
how you're doing.
yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's definitely lots of tools out there for that.
Hmm.
But I would really encourage folks to do that. Something's relatively simple, but it can
Yeah.
be very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Bill? What are
Yeah.
some best practices around retention for you?
Well, to I already mentioned about my days in the car business, and I'm reminded of an incident because I have no other incident that is more that paints a better picture of
Mm,
this. Um, sold a customer on a pre-owned vehicle. Just to be fair, I won't say the what kind of car it was, but
mhm,
one day after they made the purchase, and of course in California that's an as is purchase. You know it's guaranteed to be what it is, but not much more than that. And while he was driving on the freeway at freeway speeds, one of his U joints snapped, and the tire swung out from under the car
Wow.
because that's what it holds in place. He could have rolled, he could have died theoretically from this accident, but he didn't. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But he had the car towed to the dealership, and I found, somebody came and told me, hey, your client is here, and this is what happened. And because I had a relationship with the people in the back who were actually doing the work, because I've done that too. All the sales managers were telling me, leave this alone, do not talk to them. And I'm like,
mm,
no, I'm not going to do that. So I went
Hmm.
back. I talked to them. I helped them navigate not the sales, the service department, getting everything squared away. Helping them get everything they needed. And I still, to this day, have conversations with these people
mm,
about things.
That's amazing.
Just that because I refer to it as embracing the fire.
Yeah.
You have to walk through the coals with your clients, no matter
Yeah.
what they are, and help them navigate what they're going through, because that's the commitment you've made to help
Yeah.
them with this issue. And and of course, if you have opportunities to help them with other issues, then that's great too, because that's how you build up your referral partnerships and
The loyalty
continue to
part.
upsell. The
Mm-hmm.
loyalty.
Yeah, that's the final stage actually, is the most important of all. Like you said, that's where that retention phase turns into loyalty. And so it sounds like from your story, Bill, you've really made a friend there, and somebody who's still in communication with you today. So tell us a little bit about what that is worth, right? In terms of having a loyal customer that would be a promoter of who you are, of your business, of your solutions. Um, you know, how that would turn into maybe worth way more than the hundreds or even thousands that businesses are spending on social media advertising, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Well, it's everything. It's worth its weight in gold. Especially in a position like mine where I have transitioned to a different industry. Having loyal customers, having loyal clients from old industries, help support me in the new industry. And because people have other needs and know other people, and will help you along the way in that. And
Yeah,
you need to if you stick with them, then and help them down the way, they will stick with you and help you down the way.
right. Yeah. What about you, David? What are some areas around loyalty and maybe
To know that you've really
between between retention and loyalty, what about clients who maybe we didn't really talk about this, but maybe clients that wind up that we find out is a bit toxic, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that demands more of you than maybe what you had agreed upon, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle those type of situations?
That's a great one. That's a lot in there, and that kind of goes to our communication that we were
Yeah.
talking about last week. Um, there's a couple. The easiest way on that, if you have a client, depends on your offer and the way that it's structured, Charlie.
Hmm.
This is one I like, a simple one. If you have let's just say a subscription based or a reoccurring offer, like I'd say raise your prices. I mean, not in a bad way, meaning if you can, as you have new clients come in, right? Whatever your
Hmm.
offer is, as you have demand, you increase your prices, and then you say to this person, hey, you know what? This is the current rate now, and you're not just picking on them. This is true. This is this is a great opportunity, because they'll probably say, I'm out potentially,
Hmm. Hmm.
if they feel like, okay, because you've got other people now, hopefully you're doing good services that want you, and they're knocking
Right.
on you, so you probably
Right.
have them. So there's some lag there. That would be one of them I would do. um that's that's in kind of a non-confrontational one, but it's just kind of a factual one.
Yeah.
Right. But as you grow the business, it's, I think, a good business model. um you have to be careful about, and I talked about this in another live I did just a few days ago, about who you associate with. If they're, like you said, if they're problematic, it's one thing. I used to work in the environmental consulting world, where legally they could, do things against the law. So you could say, I mean, if they're doing something like that, Charlie, or in violation, I mean, you guys have, obviously, with your IT things, you have certain um, licenses and permits that say, or
Risk
licenses, right? They
risk
say,
management. Yeah.
right. Well, but
Yeah.
even if they're not using the software correctly, right?
Yeah.
There's certain that says
Yeah.
you're going to use it this way properly.
Right.
And if they're not doing it that way, or they're going around it, they're doing some things, and, well, you can look. That's why we have contracts.
Yeah.
Honestly, is we look at that and say, are we in violation of our contracts?
Right.
Oftentimes, as business owners, sometimes we have to. I know, Bill, you're gonna have to leave here in a minute. We appreciate you having here.
Yeah.
Thanks so
I
much.
appreciate being on here.
Yeah,
Thank
Bill, we
you.
really appreciate it. Charlie and I'll wrap it up for the night. Till next week,
Sure.
Okie
Bill.
doke.
Yep.
Until
Yes.
next week.
Yes.
All right. See you, Bill. Thank you.
See ya.
You know, I mean, Charlie, you and I have been in consulting for a long time, and so there's that challenge of those folks that are um, taking a lot more time of us, and so we do have
Yeah.
to do triage about it.
Yeah.
I would just really be really clear. This is where you got to be careful as a business owner too. if you're desperate for the money, that's not a bad
Mhm.
place to be. I would even
Exactly.
say, I don't need your money. I
Right.
mean, I appreciate you being here, but I have other people I need to take care of, and I want to support you, but I'm not going to do it in a way that's an unhealthy relationship, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where an outside consultant sometimes help you get you perspective. You're like, I'm not quite sure if I'm seeing this right. What's my responsibility? What's their responsibility? I'd say,
Mhm.
we talked about this early on in multiple episodes, right, Charlie? Like, reach
Yeah.
out for help. Don't go
Yeah.
alone in this. Get
Exactly.
some outside perspective. You know, that's so valuable. And
Yeah.
that's why we're here. Any one of us on this call, that you guys are listening to this, anyone, and in this episode or previous episodes, right, Charlie? Like, we're not charging you here. Just come and give us a message. We'll tell you if we can help you or not. Right?
Yep. Yep.
If you're stuck with
Absolutely.
that, especially too, is this they may have an IT consultant already, Charlie. You're like, look,
Mhm.
I might not be able to help you, but if they're saying, I just want to compare or see, you're like, right? You would say, let me, sure, I'll look and I'll tell you if I can help you or not.
Yeah.
You know, Here,
Yeah.
I've learned this from another insurance friend of mine, a friend that does insurance, and sometimes he has people he'll look and evaluate their insurance from, and he can't help them. He's like, you know what? I really can't help you, but those people that he can't help, they can often have refer him people. They're like, he didn't help me necessarily directly, but I didn't hire him, but he did help me, and I think he's be a good asset. So,
Nice.
I think that's an important strategy.
Yeah.
And this definitely is a bigger topic, which we should probably
Yeah.
come back to, I think, Charlie, with the
For
group,
sure.
come back as like client management boundaries. We've talked about that in previous episodes,
Yep.
right? With
Yep. Yep.
Curtis,
Yeah.
how do you have good,
Exactly.
clear boundaries? It's not just employees, it's clients too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, the other side of the loyalty coin, which is the final stage, is a potential detractor, right? Somebody who actually canceled or terminated services with you.
Mhm.
So, how do you, what are some keys to your communication around that, right? And client slash customer management when you're at that stage, right? Where instead of loyalty, you're having somebody who's departing and they could potentially be a detractor. So how do you handle those situations?
I think, I kind of lump them together with the same people that said no to me when we gave them the offer, right, Charlie? They said
Right,
no.
right,
I
yeah,
don't want to work with you. So but they at some point they said yes, they want more information. So it's a different path to me. It's like, think about your life cycle. So your messaging is going to be different. So if you
hmm
can move them, track them in your list, wherever your customer relationship management system, however you do it, get them clear, like, okay, there are no, and this is where they're at. They either worked with us or they said they didn't work with us and they said no. But I would still keep messaging them, in my opinion, Charlie,
hmm
until they say, I don't want to hear from you anymore.
right, yeah,
As long as they, I would continue to message them, because there may be a point later on where, like, dang, I didn't work with them and I stopped, and you know what? I really need to go back. I
yeah,
really need help. And we don't know when that's going to be. It could be
right,
6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, who knows? But
right,
until they say, stop, I don't want to hear from you, we're breaking up, I would say
yeah,
continue to it's just a different messaging,
right.
right?
Like the drip campaign, right? Or the nurturing
Yeah,
campaign
but
where
it's just
you're
you're
just
getting
dripping
them
on them. Yeah,
value. Yeah,
yeah.
but it's specifically like,
Stay
they're
top of mind.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just nurturing them. It's just like a relationship. Look, if we have a friend and they're just in a different stage of life,
yeah,
we've grown up, right? And I had friends that I went to high school with in college, and I love them, but I don't see them very much anymore. But I still message them periodically to let them know I'm
yeah,
here, thinking about
yeah,
them. They're not dead to me,
yeah,
just because we
yeah,
don't, have regular connections all the time. And there may
yeah,
be a time where, like, hey, let's get together, right? I
yep,
think you got to be. That's just my long-term thinking approach, Charlie.
yeah,
Uh, you know, uh, that's
yeah,
not that hard to keep that messaging going
yeah.
with
And
folks.
and for sticky businesses like ours, where our management and our solution is very, very involved in terms of what we're doing for our clients. Being graceful and empathetic, right, and compassionate on the offboarding as well, and working with being cooperative with maybe whoever is taking over those responsibilities, right? Whether it be another company that's way cheaper or whatever the case, like
Mhm.
just be a decent human being and do the right thing instead of being bitter and not responding and because it's like you treated them so well when they came on board, treat them this give them the same level of professionalism
Yes.
when they depart you, because they
Yes.
may, like you said, come back around and want to be your customer down the road. Who knows? So yeah,
I'll add this in this because I think this is not business, but this is actually personal. But I think it's just completely relatable, Charlie.
yeah,
I've been in a lot of um, because I've had my challenges in marriage, and I've had others in where
right,
I've seen people go two paths in divorce. They
right,
completely obliterate their spouse, and they're now the
exactly,
enemy, and they make their
yeah,
life a living hell.
right,
Or they go the high road and they recognize that, hey, I chose this person, I love this person, it didn't work out. I'm doing the best that I can
yeah,
to take care of myself and to take care of them. Those
yeah,
people, I love to be around and I appreciate where they're
yeah,
coming at. And to be honest
yeah.
with you, I've seen marriages restored over time, but in some
That's
cases
huge. Yeah, yeah,
because they did that. But the people
yeah,
that literally obliterate them, it's
yeah,
done.
yeah,
There's no chance of restoration. There's no chance.
exactly.
You're lucky that they can even talk to each other. And if you had children
Yeah.
in the mix, it's even worse.
Oh gosh.
So
Yeah,
to your
yeah,
point, right, Charlie?
yeah, yeah,
It's vital
yeah.
that we care for those people that are in our sphere of
Right,
influence
right.
as long as we can and to the best
Yeah,
that we can.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's end it there. Any
Yeah,
final
so we
thoughts?
talked about care and celebrating. I think we hit some
Absolutely.
more on the communication. For those that are listening to this, go back and hear the communication code episode that we just did last week, and then the business centric one too. I really did enjoy that one, Charlie, because there's some similar things in there. The
Awesome.
reality is, like we're talking about these things. There's so much to learn in the business cycle, and I'm so grateful that you're here, Charlie. You know, as you guys are listening to this, wherever you're listening to it, we love to bring these to you to bring value and help you. Share them, encourage others, subscribe to us because we are on YouTube and we have it all on all the different platforms, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, whatever you like. Leave us a review too, because we'd love to hear back from you guys as to what's resonating. It's super valuable and important because we're bringing these folks together. And candidly, if you're interested, we have rotating guests in here. Let us know. We'd love to hear your voice, and perhaps we can have you on here in the Business Roundtable podcast. We're going to have other business owners joining us this year in 2024 because we like to just have different voices and hear different perspectives. It's valuable. I learn, Charlie learns. And
Absolutely.
so this week we had a great four of us. Last week we had Curtis and Stacy and Luke on. So it's going to vary from week to week, but I think that's exciting, and you guys can come back and see who's going to be on the next episode.
Could be
So
you.
yeah,
Yep.
could be you. Could be you.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Charlie, for facilitating
My
our
pleasure.
conversation here. And
Yeah,
we'll look forward to seeing everybody in next week. Thanks all.
sounds great. Have a good night.